Let's take a look at your BMW direct mail postcard drafts. I think with the submissions that I got, everybody did a really good job, especially for a first round of doing a project like this. It's kind of a trial by fire here to throw you guys right in. But yeah, I think overall everybody did really well. I think a couple of things that can apply to a lot of people are to make sure that we are keeping our proportion sizes intact. There's a few instances where we're squishing photos. We're either not holding shift or using the scale tool. So we need to be mindful of that, especially when we're working with products and logos and companies, etc. They're very territorial over that kind of stuff. And also making sure that we have the model that we're advertising here. I know it's kind of like theoretical, but we're advertising the all new BMW Active Hybrid X6, and it's a sports utility coupe. If you want to use that proper terminology, whatever. So a couple of you used that, a couple of you didn't. So if you're going to use that sort of full-on title, you want to make sure that that is correct. Anyway, let's jump right in with Ryanne's, sorry, here. Even not in person, I do that. I think overall you did a great job. I think it's very sort of classically BMW here as we preview both of these. I think they're very simple in a good way. Simple, I think people think is bad sometimes, or clean as I refer to it. I think it's very clean, very well done. I think some minor tweaks for both of them actually. I like this offset with the pictures that we have. I might even nudge it a little bit more. You try and see if it works. If you like it, nudge this one right more, this one a little bit left more, and kind of keep that where it is in the center-ish, just to kind of like, I don't know, make it a little bit more obvious, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then again, with the model number, we want to make sure that we're getting the correct model number. And I feel like we can make that probably a lot smaller, either maybe once we get the full title in there too, maybe off to the left or even in the right area here, depending on what we do with this. Lastly, sort of, I think your product shots, to mention them, I think your product shots work really well. I think you do have a little bit of room maybe for utilizing this space a little bit to sort of uncrowd, if that's a word, this area. But we'll get into that in a second. I think that, again, your product shots work really well. I think they're curated nicely. You picked some good photos for it and arranged them very well. Lastly, I'll say maybe sort of rearranging this. I like the idea of your headline, but I think maybe it's a little bit awkward to say. I know sometimes it's hard to sort of, I don't know, take yourself out of it, but I might arrange this a little bit more. So depending on how you're trying to say it, so if you're trying to say there truly is an X, perfect for any adventure, every adventure, sorry. If you're having that pause, then I would separate this. So have like, there truly is an X, dot, 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 perfect for every adventure. You know what I mean? Or I'm assuming that's how it's going to be read. Or it's going to be read sort of like you have to rearrange it. So you say there truly is a perfect X for every adventure. So I guess it just depends on how you want to say it. I think either way kind of makes sense. I think somewhat as a clientish, I might prefer how I originally said it. So maybe just rearranging so there truly is an X, next thing, perfect for every adventure. And I would separate that physically a little bit too. I would make this a little bit bigger actually. I don't know if you have room to move. Not really. I was thinking if you had room to move the photo down a little bit. But even if you made that slightly bigger and had, there truly is an X, and then under here, perfect for every adventure, and even making this line a little bit bigger than this line. So if you were to look at the card and just see it for the first time, perfect for every adventure. Oh, what's perfect for every adventure? The BMW, blah, blah, blah. So it might be a nice way to sort of, wrangle the viewer a little bit. But yeah, if we separated that so you had like first line, second line, even a little bit bigger, and then, you could have the model number right under that as well. You know what I mean? So like maybe it wouldn't be, wrong thing. Anyway, not this big, but have, that second line and then the model name a little bit smaller. In person, I can explain that probably a little better, but I think that's a great start. I think this one really, there's not a ton in a good way to say about it. It's very classically BMW. Um, really the only thing missing again is the model name and what we're selling. So even again, if you wanted to make this a bit bigger, depending on where this is in the safe zone, if you wanted to make that a bit bigger so it's maybe not quite crowding here, or if you have room to move this down a little bit, maybe to the right as well. Um, but yeah, make that bigger. Steal every scene, car shot. Maybe see where it would work, but maybe model name and number here, logo. I think that's pretty clean. I think with both of these, um, you have some options. I think if you revise this one, it could be very sort of like clean, classic, straightforward BMW. I think this one could be, still sort of in that BMW area, but a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more. I mean, they're both pretty visually interesting with the car shot you have, but this one has a little bit more like action, I guess, for lack of a better word. So it just depends on which one you want to run with, but I think either one would make great revisions. All right. And going to DOMs, so we have 1 and 2. I think we have 2 sort of like similar but different looks here. I think they both could work. I know we talked a little bit about this in person, but so just to talk about this one a little bit, I might try with this text a little bit more of a bold font, a heavier font, and maybe trying it white. I feel like the black on the dark background. I want to see the preview mode. Um, yeah, like the black on a dark background kind of disappears a little bit. Maybe try white and like a bolder font, like a thicker font. Um, go back to regular mode, normal mode. Sorry. But yeah, I think overall, I like your headline. Again, making sure that we're putting the correct model number in there. You could potentially even move this down here, see how it works. I don't know, it may or may not, especially if it's about the same size but bolder. You might even be able to move these up a little bit, not to like totally rearrange your thing, but if we move these up slightly, I like that. Car cut maybe underneath. I don't know. Again, you'll have to try it and actually rearrange it well instead of my slapping it together. And I think maybe making this shot a little bit bigger. Not to crowd these guys, but I know you kind of wanted to leave this open, but maybe kind of like split the difference between making this overall picture, but making this a little bit bigger, but still sort of capturing that feel that you have with, you got some good positive negative space working with these car cuts and this sort of like hotspot lens flare thing going on. So maybe just make that a little bit bigger. Again, I would try a white font, a little bit thicker. I like your headline, and then I don't know, maybe arranging this, maybe not. But the same kind of treatment, even if you were to have this, wherever it was, give or take, a little bit offset, but make sure we have that correct model number in there. And you might even have just the model number, and then like maybe here the only way to drive under here or to the right. I don't know why I'm obsessed with this corner, but rearranging that, separating that a little bit. But yeah, overall, I think that could be super clean. This one, like it's designed really well. This one is very different. This is a tricky shot to work with. Not a lot of people actually use this one um, as their main image for obvious reasons. It's pretty tricky to get in there. For this one again, it's just some minor tweaks. I think maybe trying to make these a little bit smaller. Um, I don't know, 75% would be too small, but somewhere, give or take, start with like 10% increments, so maybe scale these by at 90%. and see. But just to sort of give them a little bit more breathing room, I think this is a little bit crowded. I know we don't have a whole lot of room yet to push this to the right. So maybe making these a little bit smaller and giving them a lot of negative space to sort of breathe. Yeah, and then I think again making sure we have the model number, or the actual correct model name in there, and we want to make sure that this is within that safe space. This is in danger of getting cut if it shifts. Um, but yeah, this one was a tricky one to work with because it's hard to lay out type there. But even if you had, I don't know if it would fit in this corner, BMW Active Hybrid X6. I don't know. I don't think it'll fit there. But you could potentially even take this, the only way to drive, and have it be sort of a headline tagline down here, and then maybe be able to have your full. You'll have to see how small you can make it, or even if you split it, all new active hybrid X6, have it X6 bigger, or arrange the text there in that corner a little bit. But I think, yeah, overall, again, sorry, some minor tweaks with this one. I think sort of, again, making these a little bit smaller to eliminate this potential crowding we have going on. But yeah, overall, I think both are very good designs, and just going to depend on whichever one you want to use to revise. All right. So for Benjamin's, I had two submissions here, and they're very similar. So I wasn't sure if there's just two versions of like the same idea. But yeah, you see we have so I'll go with this one, I guess, just because that has more information. Again, I keep saying it, and I want to make sure I'm saying it right. The BMW X6 Active Hybrid X6 um, Sports Activity Coupe, I think. I would just honestly kind of leave that out because the rest of the title is going to be way long. But I might switch this. Have this be a lot bigger if you're going to use this sort of like classic-ish BMW style. Have this be your headline. I like how it's laid out. Maybe even have it in this area. This might be too on the nose, but maybe even like this is a decent area for, a headline, BMW style headline formatted. I mean, I think this headline works well. But yeah, I would potentially make that bigger. Try this area, and then maybe here see if you have room to move. Well, not really. I was gonna say see if you have room to move that up a little bit. Um, but yeah, and have the model number under here maybe. But you have to play around with arrangement, even if you had it here but smaller, or even under here a little bit smaller, sort of like reverse these two sizes effectively. The other thing is we want to make sure we're using that bleed. So if you want this image to go all the way to the edge, you want to make sure that your, oops, I didn't do the frame. You want to make sure that your image is extending at least, if not more. Obviously it's going to have to go more on one side than the other. But you want to make sure that your image extends to here. So you're going to have to resize. It's not going to change things too much, but you'll have to resize that image and make sure that you're effectively using that bleed. But yeah, I think some minor tweaks on this one. You can make a really good BMW postcard. All right, then we have a few from Lauren. We have this one, that one, and that one. We have a few different looks going on here. So I'll just kind of work backwards as I have these open. And I'm going to go to preview so we can get rid of some of those frames. So there we go. And let's back out just a little bit. I like this one a lot. I like how you have sort of like a different idea happening instead of like the one major shot. Just off the top of my head, now I'm curious. Yeah, okay. I was wondering if these were different sizes or not. And it might depend on the photo. But what I might do is if you want to kind of have this look, I like the idea of having this, setup, I guess, whatever. Having the two on the left, two on the right, and then some information in the middle. I would make sure maybe do this and this the same size. Make sure your boxes are, if you create one, you can just copy and paste your frame so you know it's exactly the same size. But I would arrange these so that these are the same size, and then these are the same size. Um, and I might actually even make these a little bit bigger if you can. I'm not sure. It depends on your margins there. Now I'm going to show everything. Oh yeah, no, they're right up against the safe zone. Okay, yeah, no, I see what you're doing there. So never mind that. But yeah, I would make sure that these are the same size and these are the same size, and then that will give you a nice even space here to work. Um, and I think I paused because I was thinking about the arrangement of this just visually. Um, it's a tricky spot to work when you have this sort of narrow vertical area to work with text. I'm thinking you could probably, I know it's not exactly going to work, but with formatting a little bit, have you could have the new be smaller maybe and like above, and then active hybrid X6. See if you can get that on one line. So they're sort of separated frames, maybe even offset a little bit. And then yeah, breaking this up is just going to be kind of tricky um, with how you want to break it up. Um, I'm trying to think if I keep pausing because I'm trying to think where style and beauty combines with efficiency and performance. I'm trying to think how to break that up. I know it's like kind of tricky because you don't necessarily style and beauty. I mean, visually, I feel like that looks a little bit better, but like reading it, it's not super great. But I think arranging this, finding a way to arrange this text within the spot, you got to kind of just find that sweet spot of like how everything looks and arranges with like font sizing, where you put your returns, all that sort of stuff. But I think that this could be a good different look. And then we'll go to this one. We have somewhat of a similar idea, except it's all image, which I like. But you have these sort of nice detail shots in the middle, and then your car cuts on the left and right. I almost immediately I would switch these two. I might have this on the left and this on the right, obviously. I would decrease the size of that logo. It's pretty huge. Again, these are fairly big postcards, especially for postcards. So you could probably decrease this maybe almost to where the edge of the circle theoretically is like around this size. This might be a little small, but somewhere probably 25% smaller, 20% maybe. Um, and I think switching these two images, I don't think you would have to worry about um, rearranging this. I might actually make this a little bit bigger or a little bit bolder or even both. And then this kind of gives you, with this one being on the right, this kind of gives you a decent area to move this down, basically. So you have this nice area to lay that text out, but still keep it at the bottom here. So I think swapping those photos, and the only reason I say that is because, again, us in the West, we read left to right. So I'm thinking that people are going to look at this side first. So you kind of want to, just as a marketing guy, you want to look at the front of the car first. So, you could have front, and then that leads you to the car's kind of pointing that way. So I think just swapping those pictures, and then arranging the text a little bit, I think this one could be a really good design as well. And then we have this one. This one I like. You have the opposite of your first one going on. I think where this one, it's honestly it's not as strong as your other two, but I'll still give you some feedback if you still want to use it. This is going to be kind of tricky because you're not really going to have a large product shot. So I think picking different product shots like these would make better larger photos. Um, so I think having different, maybe more of those like classically BMW shots, so that you can have the car effectively take up more of this frame since they're going to be so small. And then again, kind of like I said with the other ones, like you're going to need to find that sort of sweet spot here specifically with breaking this up, and maybe even just arranging, offsetting your alignments or even some creative arranging with sizing. If you wanted to highlight where you had, where style beauty, larger, efficiency, performance, kind of do that letterpress style. If you're familiar with that, we can talk about that if you're not. But I think arranging this in a sort of more dynamic letterpress style, since it's so sort of stark and clean, you need that like diamonism, dynamic, you know what I mean? You need to make it more dynamic. I'm not going to edit that out. Yeah, making that more dynamic, maybe sort of like letterpress style. And then I might switch these, have the BMW logo up here, and then active hybrid X6, or try to keep this on one line, or again, sort of arranging slightly so that it's more of a block rather than this orphan X6 on the next line. But yeah, I think three really strong ideas, depending, again, like I said, for everybody else, depending on whichever one you want to work with, I think you could have a very strong revision. And then Sarah's. So we have that one and this one. So we talked about these a bunch in person. I feel like there's another one on one of these pages. Hold on. Let's see. There is. I knew it. Okay. So I'll talk about these three. We talked about this a bunch. You're still doing some of the things that we talked about, correcting. So again, watching your spelling. You have a lot of typos actually, but typos and misspellings. But you're also, I think, almost every single one of these shots is squished. So you're not being mindful of your proportions, especially the logos. Yeah, and then here there's some interesting, like the way it's cut and paste. You need to watch your typesetting, is what I'm trying to say, and your copy. But visually, I really kind of like this idea, sort of going with this, Mondrian sort of look. But we talked about sort of, I might swap this headline. So if we had, this be your headline and then introducing the active hybrid X6, and then you could have, there's a lot of text going on. I think you need to edit what you are going to be working with. I think there's just a lot going on text-wise, so I think you need to edit like your actual text, but also edit like getting rid of some things. But I really kind of liked how dynamic this, kind of Mondrian thing was. Even maybe simplifying it and having this be one image and this be one image, or you could have one strong product image here, and then even make this one frame effectively and have one image go across all three of these and one image go across all three of these, and then find another spot for your BMW logo. But I think that one could be really strong. Again, I think here, again, we need to watch our formatting of our pictures. And then we have some things going on with the frames here. I'm not sure. Oh, there's some people. Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit. Oh, you have color on your frame. That's what it is. So yeah, so you have some color on your frame and your image doesn't quite fill up the whole frame. So you're getting these like odd outlines kind of. So we need to be mindful of our color fills, and again, of our proportions. But yeah, I think for this one, once you get the picture straightened out, if we had, again, sort of more of a headline, use this sort of type as a headline here, and then you could have your introducing the active hybrid X6, here smaller, but basically like swap that formatting, kind of like your last one. And then maybe making this a little bit more dynamic, having this be more of an offset. If you had, obviously with black, but, or make these a little bit bigger and have them overlap this black, maybe making them a little bit larger, or kind of like offsetting them and playing around with the idea of like these kind of like offset graphics you have going on there. I think incorporating those into this as well might be kind of cool. And then this one, yeah, I think again, this one, again, we got to watch our proportions. Yeah, I think this one you might even be able to have a detail or two, even again, if you had this these two frames effectively become one and have like one detail shot go across both of them, or even kind of play around with the idea of having, which one was it? This one. Play around with the idea of having sort of a format similar to this here, and then you could fill that with one detail shot that's kind of broken up. But yeah, again, sort of a similar thing. Watch your spelling or your formatting rather, and then your copy. I think formatting it. Happiness starts, and then maybe with a new BMW Active Hybrid X6. And again, we need to double check on sports. It's a sports activity coupe, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're going to use like that, companies get very hung up on their terminology. So just make sure we get that right if you're going to have that. You can even just take that off though, because you have your BMW Active Hybrid X6 and leave it at that. But yeah, I think formatting this text, not similarly, but kind of how you have this formatted a little bit more. But yeah, I think formatting your texts in this area to make that a little bit more dynamic, watching your proportions, and then yeah, maybe even trying in these like inset images something that was similar to splitting the difference between that and like this one. But yeah, I think three really good ideas with some tweaking, combinations, etc. I think you could have a strong final draft. So I think again, everybody did a pretty good job. Everybody did a very good job. Sorry. Yeah, I'm happy with what I saw, and I'm looking forward to seeing your revisions.